The rain came down like bullets. Cold. Sharp. Relentless. Giulia Torres pressed her hand harder against the wound on her side, stumbling forward on the empty highway. Her white shirt was soaked red. Every breath felt like broken glass scraping her lungs. She didn't know how far she'd run. She didn't know if they were still chasing her. Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city below in the comment section. She only knew she couldn't stop. Behind her, headlights cut through the storm. Her heart slammed into her ribs. Asterisk no. Not them. Please, not them. Asterisk. But the black SUV didn't speed up. It slowed down. Giulia collapsed against a rusted guardrail, her legs giving out. The vehicle stopped 10 feet away. The engine purred like a sleeping beast. The door opened. A man stepped out. Tall. Broad shoulders hidden beneath a long black coat. Dark hair slicked back, rain sliding off him like he didn't belong to this world. His face was sharp, handsome in a way that felt dangerous. Cold eyes swept over her, calculating, emotionless. He didn't speak. He just watched. Giulia tried to push herself up, but her body refused. Please, she whispered. Her voice was barely louder than the rain. Don't let them find me. The man tilted his head slightly. Then he walked toward her. She flinched, but he crouched down in front of her, his expensive shoes sinking into the mud. Up close, his eyes weren't as cold as she thought. They were sharp, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But there was something else buried underneath. Recognition. Or maybe curiosity. Who hurt you? His voice was low, smooth, with a faint Italian accent that wrapped around every word like silk over steel. I don't. Giulia winced, clutching her side tighter. It doesn't matter. They'll kill me if they catch me. They won't. 2 words. Said with such certainty that Giulia believed him. He stood and gestured to someone she couldn't see. A second man appeared from the driver's seat. Younger, nervous-looking, holding an umbrella. The boss didn't take it. He simply bent down, slid one arm under her knees and the other behind her back, and lifted her like she weighed nothing. Giulia gasped. What are you? You're safe with me. She wanted to argue. Wanted to ask who he was, why he was helping her, what he wanted in return. But the warmth of his body against hers, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the way he carried her so carefully despite the blood staining his coat, it all made her words disappear. He placed her gently in the back seat. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The younger man climbed into the driver's seat, glancing nervously at his boss through the rearview mirror. Hospital? The driver asked. No. The boss slid in beside Giulia, his eyes never leaving her face. Take us to the estate. Call Dr. Conti. Tell him it's urgent. Boss, if she's involved with. Did I ask for your opinion, Luca? The driver's mouth snapped shut. No, sir. The SUV pulled back onto the highway, rain hammering the roof. Giulia leaned back against the seat, her vision starting to blur. She turned her head toward the man beside her. Why are you helping me? She whispered. He was quiet for a moment, studying her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Then his lips curved into the smallest, most dangerous smile she'd ever seen. Because, he said softly, I don't like it when people break things that don't belong to them. Giulia's breath caught. I don't belong to anyone. His smile didn't fade. Not yet. Her heart should have been racing with fear. Instead, it raced with something far more dangerous. The SUV turned off the main road, heading toward a private gate hidden among the trees. Giulia watched the iron bars swing open, revealing a long driveway lined with stone statues and perfectly trimmed hedges. At the end sat a mansion. No, an estate. White marble. Tall windows. Fountains that glowed even in the rain. This wasn't just wealth. This was power. And the man sitting beside her owned every inch of it. Luca parked near the entrance. The boss stepped out first, then reached back for Giulia. She tried to stand on her own, but her knees buckled. He caught her effortlessly, lifting her again. I can walk, she muttered. You can barely breathe. He wasn't wrong. Inside, The estate was even more breathtaking. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, paintings that probably cost more than her entire life. But Giulia didn't get to admire it for long. The boss carried her up a grand staircase and into a bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. He laid her down on the bed, soft, impossibly soft, and stepped back. A man in his 50s rushed in, carrying a medical bag. He didn't ask questions. Just got to work. Giulia hissed as he peeled back her shirt to examine the wound. The boss stood near the window, hands in his pockets, watching the rain. "She'll be fine," Dr. Conti said after a few minutes. "The bullet grazed her. Clean it, stitch it, she'll recover." The boss nodded once. "Do it." The doctor worked quickly. Giulia bit down on her lip to keep from crying out. When it was over, Dr. Conti packed up his bag and left without a word. The boss finally turned to face her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Giulia." "Giulia," he repeated, like he was tasting it. "I'm Dante Rivero." Her blood went cold. Everyone knew that name. Everyone feared it. Dante Rivero, head of the Rivero family. The most powerful mafia boss on the East Coast. A man who controlled everything from shipping docks to politicians. A man who could make people disappear with a single phone call. And she was lying in his bed. You're... She couldn't finish the sentence. Dante's expression didn't change. Yes. Giulia's mind raced. She should run. She should scream. She should do anything except lie here staring at him like a fool. But instead, she whispered, "Thank you." Dante studied her for a long, silent moment. Then he walked to the door. "Rest," he said. "We'll talk in the morning." "Wait." He paused. "Why did you really stop?" Giulia asked. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Dante glanced over his shoulder, and for the first time, she saw something almost human in his eyes. "Because," he said quietly, "I know what it's like to run." Then he was gone. And Giulia was left alone in the dark, her heart pounding, her mind spinning, wondering what she'd just walked into. Giulia woke to sunlight streaming through silk curtains. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the pain in her side reminded her. The rain. The blood. The man who saved her. Dante Rivero. She sat up slowly, wincing. Someone had changed her clothes while she slept. She now wore a soft cotton shirt that was far too big for her. The room smelled like lavender and expensive sheets. Outside the window, she could see gardens that seemed to stretch forever. This wasn't a dream. This was real. A knock at the door made her freeze. "Come in," she said, her voice hoarse. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a tray. She had kind eyes and gray hair pulled into a neat bun. "Good morning, dear. I'm Bianca. I manage the household." She set the tray on the bedside table. "Mr. Rivero asked me to bring you breakfast." Giulia stared at the food. Fresh fruit. Scrambled eggs. Coffee that smelled like heaven. "Thank you." Bianca smiled gently. "He also asked me to tell you that you're free to move around the estate. But he'd like to speak with you when you're ready." Free to move around. As if she were a guest and not a stranger he'd picked up bleeding on the highway. "Where is he?" Giulia asked. "In his study. Third door on the left, downstairs." Bianca paused at the door. "He's not what people think, you know. Give him a chance." Then she was gone. Giulia ate slowly, her mind racing. She should leave. She should thank Dante and disappear before she got tangled up in whatever world he lived in. But something kept her in that chair. Curiosity. Gratitude. Or maybe something more dangerous. After she finished, she found clothes laid out for her. Simple jeans and a sweater that fit perfectly. Someone had measured her while she slept. The thought should have scared her. Instead, it felt strangely intimate. She made her way downstairs, her hand trailing along the marble banister. The estate was quiet. Too quiet. Like everyone was holding their breath. The study door was open. Dante sat behind a massive oak desk, reading through papers. He'd changed from last night. Now he wore a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. He looked up when she entered, and those sharp eyes softened just slightly. "You're awake," he said. "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot." His lips twitched. Almost a smile. "Sit." Giulia lowered herself into the chair across from him. The desk felt like a barrier between two different worlds. "You don't have to be afraid," Dante said quietly. "I'm not going to hurt you." "I know." "Do you?" Giulia met his gaze. "If you wanted to hurt me, you would have left me on that highway." Dante leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Smart. I like that." "Why did you bring me here?" Giulia asked. "Really? Don't give me some vague answer. I want the truth." Dante was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. "Last night, I was driving back from a meeting. A very unpleasant meeting where I had to remind certain people what happens when they betray me." His voice was calm, detached. "I was angry, tired, ready to go home and forget the whole night." He turned to face her. "Then I saw you, bleeding, running, terrified." His jaw tightened. "And for some reason I can't explain, I couldn't drive past you." Giulia's heart hammered in her chest. "That's not an answer." "No," Dante agreed. "It's not." He walked closer, stopping just in front of her chair. This close, she could see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the shadow of exhaustion under his eyes, the weight he carried in every controlled breath. "Who were you running from?" he asked. Giulia looked away. "People I owed money to." "How much?" 30,000. Dante didn't even blink. "Done. It's paid." Her head snapped up. "What? No. I can't." "You can't pay it yourself," Dante said simply. "So I did." "Why?" Giulia stood, anger and confusion flooding through her. "Why would you do that? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Dante stepped closer. Too close. She could feel the heat radiating off him. "Because now you owe me," he said softly. "And I always collect my debts." Giulia's breath caught. She should run. She should push past him and never look back. But she didn't move. Neither did he. And in that charged silence, something dangerous began to grow between them. Something neither of them could control. 3 days passed like a strange dream. Giulia healed quickly under Dr. Conti's care. The stitches pulled less. The pain faded to a dull ache. But the confusion only grew stronger. Dante gave her space. Too much space. She'd see him in passing, at breakfast in the hallway, through the study window as he worked late into the night. He'd nod. She'd nod back. Then he'd disappear again like smoke. It drove her crazy. She explored the estate during the day. The library with its 1,000 books. The gardens with fountains that sang. The garage filled with cars worth more than houses. Every corner screamed wealth and power. But at night, she heard things. Voices. Harsh and low. Doors slamming. Cars arriving at odd hours. Once, she heard what sounded like a gunshot, distant but unmistakable. When she asked Bianca about it the next morning, the older woman just smiled and changed the subject. Giulia wasn't stupid. She knew what Dante was. But knowing and seeing were two different things. On the 4th night, she couldn't sleep. She wandered downstairs in bare feet, wearing one of the silk robes Bianca had left for her. The estate was dark except for a light coming from beneath the study door. She should have gone back upstairs. Instead, she moved closer. The door was cracked open. Through the gap, she could see Dante standing over his desk. But he wasn't alone. 2 men knelt on the floor in front of him. Their hands were tied behind their backs. Blood dripped from one man's nose. The other was shaking. Giulia's stomach twisted. "I'll ask one more time," Dante said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "Who gave you permission to move product through my territory?" "We didn't know," the bleeding man started. "Don't lie to me, Tommaso." Dante crouched down to eye level. You've worked these streets for 5 years. You know exactly whose territory this is. It was Enzo, the shaking man blurted out. Enzo Costa. He said you were losing your grip. That we could move in. Dante stood. He pulled a gun from his waistband. Giulia's heart stopped. Wait, Tommaso begged. Please. We made a mistake. It won't happen again. Dante checked the chamber with practiced ease. You're right. It won't. Giulia pushed the door open before she could stop herself. Don't. Everyone froze. Dante's eyes snapped to her. For a moment, something dangerous flashed across his face. Then it smoothed into that controlled mask she'd come to recognize. Go back to your room, Giulia. I said don't. She stepped inside, her voice steadier than she felt. Whatever they did, there has to be another way. This doesn't concern you. You're about to kill 2 men. That concerns me. The 2 prisoners looked between Dante and Giulia like they were watching a bomb about to explode. Dante's jaw tightened. He handed the gun to Luca, who'd been standing silently in the corner. Get them out of here. Take them to the warehouse. I'll deal with them later. Luca nodded and hauled the men to their feet, dragging them toward a side door. They disappeared into the night. When they were alone, Dante turned to Giulia. The calm was gone. Now there was something raw and furious in his eyes. Don't ever do that again, he said quietly. Do what? Stop you from becoming a murderer. I'm already a murderer. He stepped closer, his voice dropping lower. I've killed more men than you've met in your entire life. This is who I am. This is what I do. Giulia's breath came faster. Then why did you save me? I don't know. The words burst out of him like they'd been locked away too long. Dante ran a hand through his hair, frustration breaking through his control. I don't know why I stopped. I don't know why I brought you here. I don't know why I can't stop thinking about you. The confession hung in the air between them. Giulia's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Dante. You should hate me, he said, his voice rough. You should be terrified. You should run as far from me as possible. I know. Then why are you still here? Giulia took a breath. Because I don't know either. They stared at each other across the study. The space between them felt electric. Dangerous. Impossible to cross and impossible to ignore. Dante moved first. He closed the distance in 2 strides, his hand cupping her face. His thumb traced her cheekbone. This is a mistake, he whispered. I know, Giulia breathed. You'll get hurt. I know. His forehead touched hers. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. All I have is chaos and blood and enemies at every corner. Giulia's hands found his chest. She could feel his heart racing beneath her palms. I'm not asking for promises. What are you asking for? The truth. Just the truth. Dante pulled back slightly, searching her eyes. Then he let her go and walked to his desk. He pulled out a folder and handed it to her. Inside were photographs. Documents. Names she didn't recognize. Enzo Costa, Dante said. He's been trying to take over my territory for months. Those men tonight were just foot soldiers. But Enzo's building an army. He paused. And the people you owed money to? They work for him. Giulia's blood ran cold. What? You weren't shot by random loan sharks, Giulia. You were targeted. Enzo knew I'd be on that highway. He knew I'd stop for someone in trouble. Dante's voice hardened. You were bait. The folder slipped from her hands. No, she whispered. That's not possible. I had Luca investigate while you were recovering. Your debt was bought by Enzo 3 weeks ago. Then he had his men chase you onto that specific road at that specific time. Dante's eyes burned into hers. He wanted you in my house. He wanted a way in. Giulia felt like the floor was falling out from under her. So everything, me being here, it was all a setup? Yes. And you knew? Not at first, Dante admitted. But I know now. Then why am I still here? Giulia's voice cracked. Why didn't you throw me out? Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I stopped caring about the reason you came. And started caring that you stayed. Giulia didn't sleep that night. She paced her room until dawn, Dante's words echoing in her head. You were bait. Everything that happened, the debt, the chase, the gunshot, all of it orchestrated by a man she'd never met. But what terrified her more was what Dante had said last. I started caring that you stayed. When morning came, she found him in the garden. He stood by the fountain, cigarette in hand, staring at nothing. He'd been wearing the same clothes from last night. You didn't sleep either, Giulia said. Dante glanced at her. His eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, but something else flickered there when he saw her. Relief, maybe. I don't sleep much. Because of enemies like Enzo? Because of enemies like everyone. He took a drag from his cigarette. In my world, the moment you close your eyes is the moment someone puts a bullet in your head. Giulia moved closer. That's not a life. That's survival. It's the only life I know. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he could walk away, change, be someone different. But she knew better. Men like Dante Rivero didn't get second chances. They got consequences. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now. Dante dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his shoe. Now I deal with Enzo before he makes his next move. How? Dante's smile was cold. You don't want to know. Before Giulia could respond, Luca came running from the house, phone in hand. His face was pale. Boss, we have a problem. Dante's expression shifted instantly. What? It's Matteo. The name meant nothing to Giulia, but Dante's reaction said everything. His entire body went rigid. What about him? He's gone. His apartment's been cleared out. And this, Luca held up the phone. This was sent to our secure line 10 minutes ago. He played a video. The screen showed a man in his 30s tied to a chair in a dark room. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. Blood dripped from his mouth. Dante, the man rasped. I'm sorry. They have my sister. They said if I didn't. The video cut to another man stepping into frame. Tall. Silver-haired. Expensive suit. He smiled at the camera like he was posing for a photo. Enzo Costa. Hello Rivero, Enzo said smoothly. By now you've realized your little accountant has been working for me. 3 months he's been feeding me information. Your shipments. Your routes. Your weaknesses. He circled Matteo like a shark. But don't blame him too harshly. Family makes us do terrible things, doesn't it? Enzo leaned closer to the camera. I have something you want. You have something I want. Let's make a trade. The girl for Matteo. Tonight. Pier 7. Midnight. His smile widened. Don't keep me waiting. The video ended. Giulia's blood turned to ice. He wants me. He's not getting you. Dante's voice was lethal. He turned to Luca. Get everyone. I want every man we have ready by 11. Boss, it's obviously a trap. I know it's a trap. Dante snapped. But Matteo's been with me for 8 years. I'm not leaving him to die. Luca nodded and ran back to the house. Giulia grabbed Dante's arm. Wait. If he wants me, give him me. Dante spun around. Absolutely not. Listen to me. If I go, you can get Matteo back. And lose you? No. You barely know me. I know enough. Dante's hands gripped her shoulders. Enzo doesn't want you for a trade. He wants you to hurt me. The moment he has you, he'll kill you just to watch me break. Giulia's heart pounded. Why would that break you? Dante's jaw clenched. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he pulled her closer, his voice dropping to something raw and honest. Because in 4 days, you've made me feel more human than I have in 20 years. Because when I look at you, I don't see my empire or my enemies or my next move. I just see you. His thumb brushed her cheek. And the thought of losing that terrifies me more than any bullet ever could. Tears burned Giulia's eyes. Dante. So no. You're not bait. You're not a bargaining chip. You're not going anywhere near Enzo Costa. Then what's your plan? Dante's expression hardened into something deadly. I'm going to that pier. I'm going to get Matteo back. And then I'm going to put a bullet between Enzo's eyes. You'll be outnumbered. I've been outnumbered before. You could die. Dante smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then I die protecting something that matters. He kissed her forehead, gentle final, and walked toward the house. Giulia stood frozen by the fountain, her mind racing. She couldn't let him walk into a trap. She couldn't let him die for her. So she made a decision. A dangerous, stupid, terrifying decision. While Dante prepared his men, Giulia slipped into the study and found Luca's phone on the desk. She dialed the number from the video. Enzo answered on the second ring. Change of plans, Giulia said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. I'll come alone. Tonight. Same place. But you let Matteo go first. Enzo laughed. And why would you do that, beautiful? Because Dante Rivero doesn't deserve to die for my mistakes. Silence. Then, Pier 7. 11 o'clock. Come alone, or Matteo dies screaming. The line went dead. Giulia set the phone down and took a shaky breath. She had 2 hours to slip past Dante's guards and save the man who'd saved her. Even if it meant sacrificing herself. The pier smelled like salt and diesel fuel. Giulia stepped out of the taxi at 10:50, her heart hammering against her ribs. Fog rolled off the black water, swallowing the distant lights of the city. Shipping containers stacked like metal giants cast long shadows across the dock. She was alone. Or so Enzo thought. Her hands trembled as she walked toward Pier 7. She'd left a note for Dante on his desk, knowing he'd find it too late. Knowing he'd be furious. But this was her choice. Her mess to clean up. Footsteps echoed behind her. Giulia spun around. 6 men emerged from between the containers, guns drawn. In the center walked Enzo Costa, immaculate in his tailored suit despite the late hour. Right on time, Enzo said, smiling. I admire punctuality. Where's Matteo? Giulia demanded. Enzo snapped his fingers. 2 men dragged Matteo forward. He could barely stand. His face was worse than in the video, swollen, bleeding, broken. Let him go, Giulia said. I'm here. That was the deal. The deal, Enzo repeated, amused. You think I make deals with nobody? You're just a tool, sweetheart. A way to break Dante Rivero's legendary control. He stepped closer. And judging by the way he's been acting, it's working beautifully. Giulia's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean he's coming. Right now. With every man he has. Enzo checked his watch. Should arrive in about 3 minutes. And when he does, my men stationed on those rooftops, he gestured to the surrounding buildings, will cut him down like the dog he is. No. Giulia lunged forward, but 2 men grabbed her arms. You said. I lied. Enzo gripped her chin, forcing her to look at him. This was never about you, girl. This was about making Dante Rivero care about something. And then destroying it in front of him. Headlights cut through the fog. 3 black SUVs roared onto the pier, tires screaming. They skidded to a stop 50 feet away. Doors flew open. Dante stepped out, gun already drawn. Even from a distance, Giulia could see the fury radiating off him. Behind him, Luca and a dozen armed men fanned out, weapons raised. Let her go, Enzo. Dante's voice carried across the water like thunder. Enzo pulled Giulia in front of him, pressing a gun to her temple. Not quite the reunion you hoped for, is it? Dante's eyes locked on Giulia's. The rage in them was terrifying. But beneath it, she saw something else. Fear. Raw, honest fear. "This is between us," Dante said, his voice deadly calm. "Let her and Matteo go. You want me? Here I am." "Oh, I don't just want you dead, Rivero. I want you broken first." Enzo's finger tightened on the trigger. "Say goodbye." A gunshot cracked through the air. But it wasn't Enzo who fired. Matteo, bloodied and barely conscious, had grabbed a gun from one of the distracted guards. He shot Enzo's hand, sending his weapon flying. Chaos erupted. Dante's men opened fire. Enzo's soldiers returned it. Bullets ricocheted off metal containers. Giulia dropped to the ground as Enzo cursed and dove for cover. Through the madness, Dante ran toward her. He moved like violence itself, efficient, lethal, unstoppable. He shot 2 men without breaking stride, grabbed Giulia by the waist, and hauled her behind a shipping container. "Are you insane?" he shouted over the gunfire. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking I couldn't let you die for me." "So you decided to die instead?" Dante cupped her face, his hands shaking. "You stupid, brave, impossible woman." A bullet pinged off the container above their heads. Dante pushed Giulia down and returned fire. "Luca, get Matteo out of here." "On it, boss." More gunfire. More shouting. Then, through the smoke and chaos, Enzo appeared. He was bleeding from his hand, his perfect suit ruined. But he had a new gun, and it was pointed straight at Dante. "You took everything from me," Enzo snarled. "My territory. My reputation. My father's legacy." "Your father was a coward who died begging," Dante said coldly. "Just like you will." Enzo's finger moved to the trigger. Giulia didn't think. She grabbed a metal pipe lying nearby and swung it with everything she had. It connected with Enzo's arm. The gun went off, the bullet going wide. Enzo stumbled backward, shocked. Dante didn't hesitate. He fired once. Enzo Costa fell to the ground and didn't move. Silence crashed over the pier like a wave. The remaining soldiers, seeing their boss dead, dropped their weapons and ran. Dante stood there, chest heaving, gun still raised. Then he turned to Giulia. "You," his voice broke. "You could have been killed. So could you." He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, furious, and filled with everything they'd been holding back. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped his jacket. The world fell away until there was nothing but this. The taste of gunpowder and rain, the feeling of being alive when they should be dead. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. "Don't ever do that again," he whispered. "Which part?" "Any of it." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "I love you. I don't know when it happened or how, but I love you. And I can't lose you." Tears spilled down Giulia's cheeks. "I love you too." Around them, Dante's men were securing the area. Luca had gotten Matteo to safety. The danger was over. But standing there in Dante's arms, Giulia knew the real danger was just beginning. Because loving Dante Rivero meant entering his world completely. And there was no going back. The estate felt different when they returned. Darker. Heavier. Dante had won the battle, but war was coming. Enzo Costa's death wouldn't go unanswered. His allies would retaliate. His family would demand blood. And everyone would know Giulia was Dante's weakness. Dr. Conti patched up Matteo in one of the guest rooms. The accountant would live, but he'd never be the same. Guilt lived in his eyes now, the kind that didn't wash away. Dante stood in his study, staring out at the gardens. He hadn't changed his clothes. Blood still stained his shirt. Giulia watched him from the doorway. "You should rest." "I can't." His voice was hollow. "I need to make calls. Reach out to the other families. Explain what happened before they hear lies." "Dante." 3 families were allied with Enzo, he continued, as if she hadn't spoken. The Calabrese in Boston. The Vitales in Philadelphia. The Morettas right here in the city. He turned to face her. They'll want retribution. And they'll use you to get it. Giulia's chest tightened. Then we'll fight them. We. Dante's laugh was bitter. There is no we in this, Giulia. You're not trained for this. You're not built for this life. Neither were you once. I was born into it. His voice rose, frustration spilling over. My father was a boss. My grandfather before him. I held my first gun when I was 8 years old. I watched men die before I learned to drive. He moved closer. You sell flowers, Giulia. You read books in coffee shops. You have a normal life waiting for you somewhere. Had, she corrected quietly. I had a normal life. Before Enzo. Before the debt. Before you. Then I'll give it back to you. Dante's expression hardened. I'll set you up in another city. New identity. New life. Money so you never have to worry again. Giulia felt like he'd slapped her. You're throwing me away? I'm protecting you. By sending me away? By pretending last night didn't happen. She stepped forward, anger replacing hurt. You said you loved me. I do love you. The words tore out of him. That's why I can't let you stay. Don't you understand? Everyone I've ever cared about ends up dead or destroyed. My mother. My brother. Every friend I've ever had. His voice cracked. I won't let that happen to you. You don't get to make that choice for me. Yes, I do. This is my world. My rules. Then your world is a prison. Giulia's voice shook. And you're so afraid of losing people that you push them away before they can leave. Dante flinched like she'd struck him. Before either could speak, Luca burst through the door. Boss, we have a situation. Dante's mask slammed back into place. What now? It's your uncle. Salvatore Rivero. He's here. With the Morettas. The color drained from Dante's face. My uncle is dead. Apparently not. Luca's expression was grim. He's in the main hall with Marco Moretti and a dozen soldiers. They're demanding to see you. Giulia grabbed Dante's arm. Who's Salvatore? My father's brother. Dante's voice was cold. The man who tried to kill me 10 years ago to take control of the family. I thought I'd put a bullet in him myself. Clearly you missed, Luca muttered. Dante checked his gun and started toward the door. Giulia followed. Stay here, Dante ordered. Absolutely not. Giulia. If I'm leaving anyway, what does it matter? She met his eyes. Let me see all of it. The monsters. The betrayals. Everything you think I can't handle. Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. They walked to the main hall together. Salvatore Rivero stood in the center like he owned the place. He was older than Dante, with silver hair and a face that might have been handsome if not for the cruelty in his eyes. Marco Moretti stood beside him, a bear of a man with scars running down his neck. Nephew, Salvatore said, smiling. You've redecorated. I liked it better when your father was alive. You have 30 seconds to explain why you're in my house, Dante said coldly. Before I finish what I started 10 years ago. Still so hostile. Salvatore, scared. I came to offer congratulations. You killed Enzo Costa. Quite impressive. Get to the point. The point, Marco Moretti rumbled, is that Enzo was our partner. His death leaves a vacuum. Territory up for grabs. Money to be redistributed. And we're here to claim what's ours, Salvatore added. 50% of your operations. Your shipments. Your businesses. Everything. Dante laughed. Actually laughed. You're insane. Am I? Salvatore's smile widened. Because I have 3 families backing me. The Calabrese. The Vitales. The Morettas. We're taking a vote tomorrow night. The commission will decide who runs this city. He stepped closer. And unless you want a war you can't win, you'll step down gracefully. I don't step down. Dante's voice was lethal. I bury people who threaten me. Even family? Especially family. Salvatore's eyes shifted to Giulia. And who's this? Your little flower girl? The one you started a war over? Dante moved in front of her instantly. Don't. Touchy. Salvatore grinned at Marco. Told you. He's gone soft. Fallen in love like a stupid boy. Love is weakness, Marco agreed. No, Giulia said suddenly, stepping around Dante. Love is the only thing that makes any of this worth surviving. Salvatore studied her. Brave words. Let's see if you still believe them when you're burying him. He turned and walked toward the door, his men following. Marco paused, looking back at Dante. Commission meets tomorrow. 8 p.m. Don't be late. His expression almost looked pitying. And say goodbye to your girl. She won't last the week. Then they were gone. The hall fell silent. Dante stood rigid, fists clenched. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. They're right. You won't survive this. Giulia took his hand. Then teach me how. He looked at her, shock and hope warring in his eyes. What? You said I'm not built for this life. Giulia squeezed his fingers. Then build me into someone who is. Train me. Teach me. Let me stand beside you instead of behind you. Giulia. I'm not leaving, Dante. I'm not running. I'm not going to let your uncle or the commission or anyone else decide our future. She pulled him closer. So either accept that I'm staying, or lock me in a room. Because those are your only options. For the first time since the pier, Dante smiled. Really smiled. You're completely insane. I learned from the best. He kissed her then, softer than before, but no less intense. When they pulled apart, his eyes had changed. The fear was still there. But so was determination. If you stay, there's no going back. I know. People will try to kill you. I know. You'll see things that will give you nightmares. I know. Giulia cupped his face. But I'd rather have nightmares with you than dreams without you. Dante closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. Then we fight, he said quietly. Together. Together, Giulia agreed. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the estate. Tomorrow, the commission would decide Dante's fate. But tonight, they had each other. And sometimes that was enough. The commission met in an old cathedral on the edge of the city. Fitting, Giulia thought, that they'd decide life and death in a place meant for salvation. Dante had spent all day preparing. Making calls. Securing loyalties. Planning for every possible outcome. Luca stood guard outside their bedroom while Dante dressed in a black suit that made him look like death itself. You don't have to come, he said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Giulia wore a simple black dress Bianca had found for her. Yes, I do. They'll use you against me. Then let them try. Dante turned, pulling her close. If things go wrong tonight. They won't. If they do, he insisted, Luca will get you out. There's a car waiting. Money. Passports. Everything you need. Giulia pressed her finger to his lips. We're walking out of there together. Both of us. Alive. He wanted to argue. She could see it in his eyes. But instead, he kissed her forehead and took her hand. Let's go face the wolves. The cathedral was empty except for the commission. 5 families sat in the pews like a twisted congregation. Salvatore stood at the altar, looking far too comfortable in a house of God. Marco Moretti sat to the left. The Calabrese boss, an ancient man named Gio, sat to the right. The Vitales sent their underboss, a woman named Serena with eyes like ice. And in the front row sat someone Giulia didn't recognize. A man in his 40s with kind eyes and an expensive watch. Antonio Vega, Dante whispered. Neutral party. If he votes for me, we have a chance. They walked down the aisle together. Every eye followed them. Judging. Calculating. Waiting for weakness. Salvatore smiled from the altar. Welcome, nephew. And guest. Let's skip the theatrics, Dante said. You called this commission. State your case. Gladly. Salvatore addressed the room. Dante Rivero has become a liability. He started a war over a woman. He killed Enzo Costa without commission approval. He puts personal feelings above family business. He paused. And for that, I'm calling for a vote of no confidence. I propose that I take control of the Rivero operations, with profits shared among the families present. Murmurs rippled through the cathedral. You forget something, Dante said calmly. I killed Enzo because he betrayed the commission's rules. He moved product through my territory without permission. He kidnapped my accountant. He targeted civilians. His voice hardened. I enforced our laws. That's not a liability. That's leadership. Gio Calabrese leaned forward. And the girl? Was she part of enforcing the law? The girl, Giulia said, surprising everyone including herself, has a name. It's Giulia Torres. And I'm not a weakness. I'm a witness. Salvatore laughed. A witness to what? To everything. Giulia stepped forward. Enzo Costa used me as bait because your nephew values human life. He saved me when he could have kept driving. He protected me when he could have thrown me out. He risked everything because he believes some things are worth fighting for beyond money and power. She looked at each family representative. If that makes him weak, then I'd hate to see your definition of strong. Silence filled the cathedral. Antonio Vega stood. May I speak? Salvatore's smile faltered. Of course. I've done business with Dante Rivero for 5 years, Antonio said. He's never broken his word. Never shorted a shipment. Never betrayed a confidence. He turned to Salvatore. You, on the other hand, tried to kill your own nephew and faked your death to avoid consequences. You've been hiding in Miami, building alliances, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Antonio's expression hardened. The commission doesn't reward cowards. Salvatore's face went red. You have no proof. I have bank records. Witnesses. Even a lovely video of you meeting with Enzo Costa 6 months ago. Antonio pulled out his phone. Want me to play it? The cathedral erupted. Marco Moretti stood, fury on his face. You said Enzo acted alone. I said what I needed to say, Salvatore snarled. He pulled a gun. This commission is a joke. I'm taking what's mine. Dante moved faster. He tackled Giulia to the ground as gunfire exploded through the cathedral. Salvatore's hidden men emerged from the shadows. But Dante had expected this. His own soldiers poured through the side doors. Luca led the charge, weapon raised. The cathedral became a battlefield. Giulia stayed low, her heart pounding. Through the chaos, she saw Salvatore running toward the back exit. Dante! She shouted, pointing. He saw. He understood. Dante sprinted after his uncle, gun drawn. Giulia followed, ignoring his orders to stay down. They cornered Salvatore in the garden behind the cathedral. He was bleeding from his shoulder, trapped against a stone wall. It's over, Dante said. Salvatore laughed bitterly. You think killing me ends this? There will always be someone waiting to take what's yours. I know. Dante raised his gun. But it won't be you. Wait, Giulia said. Both men looked at her. Let the commission decide, she said to Dante. You said you enforced the laws. So enforce them properly. Let them judge him. Dante's finger trembled on the trigger. For a long moment, she thought he'd fire anyway. Then he lowered the gun. You're right. He looked at Salvatore. You wanted a commission vote? You'll get one. They dragged Salvatore back inside. The shooting had stopped. Marco Moretti lay dead. The other families had surrendered. Antonio Vega stood at the altar, clothes disheveled but alive. The commission votes now, he announced. all in favor of Dante Rivero maintaining control of his territory and operations. One by one, the families voted. Gio Calabrese, aye. Serena Vitali, aye. Antonio Vega, aye. Unanimous, Antonio declared. Dante Rivero remains boss. Salvatore Rivero is exiled, effective immediately. If he returns to this city, any family may kill him without consequence. Salvatore was dragged away, screaming threats. The cathedral slowly emptied. Families left quietly, already calculating their next moves. Finally, only Dante and Giulia remained. They stood at the altar, surrounded by bullet holes and broken pews. "We survived," Giulia whispered. "We did." Dante pulled her close. "You were incredible." "I was terrified." "So was I." He kissed her softly. "But you were right. About everything. About staying. About fighting together. About love being worth surviving for." Giulia smiled through tears. "What happens now?" "Now?" Dante looked around the ruined cathedral. "Now we rebuild. The family. The business. Our life." He cupped her face. "Together." "Together," she agreed. They walked out of the cathedral hand in hand, into the morning light. Behind them lay blood and betrayal and broken alliances. Ahead lay danger and uncertainty and countless enemies. But they also had something those enemies didn't. They had each other. And in Dante Rivero's dark world, love wasn't weakness. It was the most dangerous weapon of all. 6 months later, Giulia stood in the estate gardens, watching the sunset paint the sky gold and crimson. She wore a ring now, simple, elegant, deadly serious. Dante emerged from the house, jacket slung over his shoulder. "Ready. Always." They had a meeting in the city. Business never stopped. But now, Giulia sat beside him in those meetings. Learned the names, the deals, the dangers. She'd become what she needed to be. Not a victim. Not a weakness. A partner. As they drove through the gates, Giulia looked back at the estate one last time. This was her life now. Beautiful and brutal. Terrifying and exhilarating. And she wouldn't change a single moment. Because she'd found something in the rain that night. Not just safety. Not just love. But herself.